It was our trip up the west coast of Michigan in 2017 that cemented our relationship with lighthouses on the Great Lakes. It started along Lake Michigan in Indiana. From there, we followed the lake north to Mackinaw City. After a few days enjoying the area and its beautiful bridge, we also explored Mackinaw Island before returning home along the coast where the north edge of Lake Michigan washes up on the Upper Peninsula. In 2018, we returned to the Peninsula State to visit some of the lights we missed on our first trip. Then, in 2019, wrapped around our week at the Mission Point Lighthouse, we visited the rest of the lights in Lower Michigan. So far, we've seen 2 of 5 lights in Indiana and 55 of 116 in Michigan. Some can only be seen by boat or plane, so there are a few we'll never collect. And there are 8 Illinois lights we haven't seen. We hope to visit the north side of Michigan's coastline on Lake Superior soon. Michigan has more than 3,200 miles of coastline, more than any state except Alaska. I hope you enjoyed the trip and some of the stories from our trips to the lights. In 1904, the East Pier at Michigan City, Indiana, was extended into Lake Michigan to create a safe harbor. The lightkeepers lived in the original light on land. During bad weather, keepers used the elevated catwalk to reach the light. The last keeper used it in 1940. In South Haven, a steel lighthouse was put up in 1903 to guide ships into the Black River. The catwalk was extended to 1,200 feet in 1940. Known as Big Red, the structure built in 1907 features a gabled roof which reflects the influence of Dutch immigrants in and around Holland, Michigan. The White River Light Station was built in 1875, replacing a smaller pier light built just 4 years earlier. 8 other lighthouses around Lake Michigan used the same Norman Gothic style used here. The house is gone, but the light at Little Sable Point still stands. It was painted white in 1900. The paint was removed in 1977 to show the original brick. The Ludington North Breakwater Light and the concrete breakwater where it sits are designed together to act like the bow of a ship to break and withstand strong waves. It's a 2-mile walk from the parking lot to this beautiful light, which wasn't electrified until 1949. The 112-foot tall beacon can be seen as far as 19 miles offshore. This is the second light in Manistee, built in 1872 with a catwalk of wood. The iron structure was built in 1900. The light on Frankfort's North Breakwater was built in 1912. Then moved in 1932 and placed on top of a 2-story base, lifting its light 72 feet above the lake. The Point BETSIE Lighthouse became the home of one of the first life-saving stations in 1875 when it began guiding ships through the Manitou Passage. The impressive Grand Traverse Lighthouse marks the point where eastbound ships turn to port around the Lower Peninsula or back south into Traverse Bay. After spending a week as volunteer keepers in the fall of 19, we always think of Mission Point as our lighthouse. It looks like a candle at the end of the pier, painted red to give boaters a reference point day or night. Another Norman Gothic structure, the light at McGulpin's Point, is west of the Straits of Mackinaw, but it only served from 1869 to 1906, when the lighthouse at Old Mackinaw Point took over. Its location made it visible to ship traffic to the east and west of the narrow straits when it was lit in 1892. The Mackinaw Bridge opened in 1957, proving to be an even better guide for navigation. Shishwa Point marks a small harbor on the south shore of the Upper Peninsula. Its name means only choice. The Gulliver Historical Society restored the interior of the home to what it looked like in the early 20th century. Manistee was in its heyday as a shipping port in the late 1800s, as logs were floated down the Manistee River to town, where sawmills prepared it for shipping to growing cities in the upper Midwest. Built in 1865, the light was put out of business in 1937 by another light. but the lighthouse was preserved. A fire in 1959 destroyed it, leaving the empty tower behind. 9 keepers and their families served the light in Escanaba from 1869 to 1939, when shifting sands and improvements to the harbor left the light too far inland. 1895 to 1924 were the prime years of the lighthouse on Round Island across from the Grand Hotel on Mackinaw Island. It slowly decayed after that, and was nearly lost until local efforts to save it began in the 1970s. It stands on Lake Huron, 40 miles south of Mackinaw by boat, built so ship captains could always see a light along Michigan's east coast. The old Presque Isle light is built of stone with a stone staircase. The tower's original. The keeper's quarters were rebuilt on the original foundation. Close by on the island, the new light rises 113 feet in the air, the tallest light on the Great Lakes open to the public. It's 130 steps to the top. The first lighthouse at TAWAS Point was extinguished because of sand deposited south of it, extending the point farther into Lake Huron. The taller light was built closer to the water in 1877. The rear range light on Saginaw River is mostly hidden from public view as it stands on private land owned by Dow Chemical. The company is working with Friends of the Light to restore it, but it's rarely open to the public. Built in 1829, it's the oldest lighthouse still standing in Michigan, and it continues to work a busy shipping lane where the St. Clair River takes in what Lake Huron sends their way. Lightships were used to guide ships around areas where it wasn't practical to build a lighthouse. Lightship Huron was the last lightship to work the Great Lakes, retiring from service in 1970. Windmill Point guides ships out of Lake St. Clair into the Detroit River and around Bell Island on their way to Lake Erie. The last light on our tour stands on Bell Island in the Detroit River. It's built in memory of businessman and longtime leader of maritime navigation, William Livingstone. The 58-foot tower is built of Georgia marble. Whether it's marble, steel, or wood, all lighthouses are gems to admire. To see more about these lights, visit my blog and click the Lighthouse Visits tab. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed your trip.